Good afternoon, Southern Baptist family. It is an honor to stand before you for the first time as the president of Lifeway Christian Resources, bringing you this report. Joining me today are my wife, Lindley, and the chairman of our board, Todd Fannin, and our executive team behind me. I remember the first time I ever saw a study Bible. I was in a bookstore in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I saw it across the room, and I walked over, and I picked it up, and I thumbed through its pages, and it was like someone had handed me a key to the wardrobe of Narnia. That book and the seminary between its pages changed my life. 10 years later, I remember where I was standing when I read the first chapter of Surprised by Joy, and C.S. Lewis's description of longing and the dysfunction of his own family and his relationship with his father, and it changed the way I viewed my own life and my own world. Lifeway Christian Resources exists to create things that radically alter the direction of people's lives. And the Old Testament passage in Proverbs 25:11 says, "The right word at the right time is like apples of gold in settings of silver." And what we do at Lifeway is try to create the right resources that can radically impact lives and churches, and we're proud to do that. I'm proud of what Lifeway does. I'm proud of the team I get to serve with, and for all of you who are listening from Lifeway, thank you for staying with me in these first 2 years. I am encouraged by the report that I bring to you today, but I also understand there are bittersweet moments contained within it. Let me speak to the global pandemic and how it has affected us. It was a hurricane that forced our organization into a self-protective season. When churches moved to online services, we knew it would be a massive impact to us. We canceled all of our camps. We moved all of our conferences online. Our ongoing curriculum, which is an engine for our ministry, was impacted immediately. And we braced for the hurricane, and sure enough, at the end of the year, Lifeway had missed its revenue budget by $45 million. I know that information sounds sobering and frightening, but there's good news to share. Two things happened during the pandemic that were surprising. First, our team stepped up and made bold decisions, many of which I will describe in just a moment, that saved us from financial trouble. And I'll say more about that in a second. But second, we experienced the good favor of God in that some of the things that we do soared during season of quarantine, such as the sale of Bibles, such as the sale of Bible studies, books, and other things. So you can see the full report in the book of reports, but here's three highlights quickly. We sold over 2.4 million Bibles last year. And we learned that in seasons of trouble, people are still looking to the Bible for hope and encouragement. More than 100,000 women joined an online Bible study in 2020. They were longing for that sense of community and being able to talk about Scripture. And even though VBS looked a lot different this last year, with drive-in VBS and backyard Bible clubs, we were thankful for the way that churches pivoted and made it happen. And I'm very thankful for the way our team pivoted, making our resources adaptable to a COVID environment. But where did it leave us financially after missing the budget of $45 million? Well, I want to answer that in a moment, but if I could, since it's my first time speaking to you over the last 2 years, I want to go back and kind of talk about what I walked into. Because when I showed up at Lifeway almost 2 years ago, Lifeway was in a season of distress, and I just want to honestly and transparently walk you through the painful decisions that we had to make in order to move the organization forward. So when I showed up at Lifeway, these 6 things were true. Number one, we had an underfunded pension plan, and we knew we needed to take care of our retirees. Number two, we had 174 stores that had been closed, and negotiating those leases down was a big job. That decision had been made prior to my coming. Number three, we had a brand new headquarter building that was vastly underutilized. On a good day when I showed up, it was 60% full. Our team had embraced remote work. They were being efficient from home. They were doing Zoom before Zoom was cool, and it was half empty, the building. Number four, Ridgecrest Conference Center and Camps was in need of significant physical improvements. The facilities were dated, and they would require tens of millions of dollars in order to reinvest. Number five, our cash reserve was below the acceptable range for a company our size. We weren't in emergency mode, but we knew we had to replenish our savings for future things like pandemics that could come up. And number 6, we had a very complicated website. And customers were letting us know how difficult it was to find the products they were looking for and to buy them. And as we received increasing amount of feedback on that, we knew that we had to put a lot of attention where customers were now shopping, which was Lifeway.com. So that was just a sample. Those are 6 things that we knew right away we had to address in order to move Lifeway forward. Of course, when COVID hit, like all organizations, we couldn't afford to deliberate any longer. We had to press the gas and make bold changes. And so we did 4 things, and I'll just talk through these with you, the decisions. Hopefully, you may not agree with all these decisions, but hopefully I can help you understand the rationale behind the decisions. So first, we knew that we had to reduce the size of Lifeway's workforce by 10%, and it was painful to let wonderful people go. But we had to make that decision in order to save the money. Second of all, we began to search for the next steward of Ridgecrest. The trustees were unanimous in the decision to do this. The Lord graciously brought along a group of like-minded individuals that would carry the ministry forward. They offered us a fair price for the property, and we continue to fill up the place every summer with camps and events. And we still have a heart for Ridgecrest. But if I could just take a second and speak to this personally. My wife and I, we met at a Christian camp. We have a huge heart for camps and for outdoor experiences. When we came to Lifeway, we knew that Ridgecrest was sacred ground, that many people had given their lives to Christ there, that many people had met their spouse there. Many people had felt called to ministry there. And so we traveled there, and we hung out with their staff on multiple occasions. We prayer walked the property, and we began to pray, Lord, if there would be any way for us to keep it, we would love to continue to steward Ridgecrest. But over the months, as the financials came in and we saw all the changes that need to be made, particularly with technology and the future of Lifeway and better serving churches, it became apparent to us that there was just no way for us to be able to continue to steward Ridgecrest. So here's what we did. We said, well, would there be any other entity that receives CP dollars that might be able to take it? Could we transfer ownership? So we went to other entities. We went to the EC. We went to NAM. We went to the North Carolina State Convention. None of them felt like they could take it on, and we understood. So we said, well, the goal is not to make as much money as we can off the land or anything like that, but how could we just continue the ministry of Ridgecrest? Because it's meant so much to Southern Baptists. How could we keep it going into the future? And that's when we were able to find a group of people who have been impacted by the place, who love it as much as you do, who are willing to take it forward into the future. And we were able to work it out so that they could take it forward, and we would continue to use it without owning it into the years in the future. And I just want to recognize, I know that Ridgecrest is a very special place to many of you in this room, and it was a painful decision that we had to make, but we had to make it in order to move Lifeway forward. The third thing we did is we sold our headquarters building. We closed on the sale of the building weeks ago. We have leased back 2 floors for 18 months. I was a church planter before coming to Denver, before coming to Lifeway, so I've been without an office, and it's amazing what you can get done. And we are now looking to a space in Nashville that would be a good teaming space for us, but it's going to look very different for us. But we're happy because we're able to take the dollars from the building and put it toward the church and toward the customer where it belongs. And fourth, we were able to work hard to settle the Christian store leases. We have now settled all but 2 leases, and we were able to exit that on 50 cents on the dollar, and that is nothing short of miraculous. So let me get to the bottom line. I told you we missed our revenue budget by $45 million. But because of expense cuts and because of the favor of God, here are 2 points that I want to celebrate and thank the Lord for today. Number 1, we did not have to use a single dollar of our savings or cash reserves to fund operations of Lifeway through COVID. That's miraculous. Thank you. And the second, and this is true, this is factual, today we have a stronger cash position than we have seen at Lifeway in decades. Thank you. Scripture says that every good and perfect gift comes from the Father above, and so we want to recognize that in one of the most trying seasons in the history of this organization, God has preserved us and pulled us through. Now, what are we going to do with the proceeds from the sale of the building and other things? There's four main things we're going to do. Number one, we're going to strengthen the pension fund and take care of our retirees because we wouldn't be here without them. Second of all, we're going to replenish the cash reserve to be sure we've got plenty in the future in case of future pandemics and trouble. But number three, we're going to invest in the strategic tools and resources that you want for your churches, and we're going to make the website a place where you love to come and search for your things and check out and get the things you need for your church in an expedient manner. And we're working hard on that. And number four, we are going to earmark some dollars for a teaming space in Nashville where we can work together and bring people in from all parts of the country that we employ and work together on projects. So, despite what you have heard, Lifeway is not in a fire sale. Lifeway is getting focused. And we are focusing now on four main things. And with the rest of my time here, I'd like to just tell you about four strategic decisions that we are now making so you can see where we're headed in the future. Number one, we are making a decision that we are going to go big at what we do best. We're putting our best dollars towards the tools that best serve the local churches around the world. We're getting laser focused on doing that. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're getting great feedback from customers to create the resources that are needed. I spent several hours today at the Lifeway booth interacting with church leaders and customers and getting incredible feedback on ideas that we could put together to create for your churches, and that's what we want to do. We want to go big and do the best we can where we have our best to give. Number two, we are zooming in on the church leader. So in 1891, just blocks from this place, in the First Baptist Church of Nashville, this man, James Frost, had a vision. What would it be like to create an organization that exists entirely to serve the churches with high-quality content, doctrinally sound content that's easy to use? And that was the original vision of the board, the Sunday school board. And that is where Lifeway is now headed in the future, of getting back to that original vision of serving the local churches with the content and the resources and the tools that they need. So the new mission statement for Lifeway is designing trustworthy experiences that fuel ministry, and that's what we want to do. I've pastored two churches, one in West Tennessee with a long tale of history, and one in Denver, Colorado that was a church plant. And I have a heart for pastors. I have a heart for pastors' wives. I have a heart for church leaders. And I just want you to hear loud and clear that we want to build relationships with your churches and with you, and we will be moving forward to create a relational environment for you in the future. And here's what we're learning about pastors. Lifeway Research is finishing up a study on the greatest needs of senior pastors, of lead pastors. And here are some of the things that we're finding, soon to be publishing in this direction. But pastors are saying this. Number one, I feel the weight of the ministry of this church lays totally on me. Number two, there is a tremendous sense of loneliness in ministry. Number three, it's hard to feel like you're shepherding when you can't see the sheep. And pastors have come off of one of the hardest seasons with the pandemic, and we know that pastors are tired and exhausted, and we want to come behind pastors and help them. So we are coming back to the pastor. Now, the third thing that we're doing, hopefully you've seen this, we are refreshing our brand. And I want to take a moment, and I'd love to just talk about the logo that we created, because we packed a lot of stuff inside that logo like a cream-filled donut. We tried to get as much as we could in there. And there's four things inside this logo that I want to point out to you because it expresses the future of Lifeway's focus. So first, inside the logo, you'll see the cross, because Paul said, if Christ has not been raised, your faith is worthless. So we wanted to keep the cross in the logo to be cross-centered, to be Christ-centered. Second, I want you to notice the folded piece of paper in there, because I've been pastor long enough to know that digital products are great and digital tools are wonderful, but sometimes it's just better to have paper. I've taught small groups before when a whole circle of people have a digital device, and sometimes it's just great if everybody's got a notated piece of paper in front of them. And so we want to continue to produce beautiful books, well-formatted Bible studies, and creative curriculum that you can put into people's hands if that's your choice and your decision in your church. So we want to continue to do that. But number three, notice the pixel. The square represents our commitment to going digital. We know that the church of 2030 is going to be full of digital natives. And so we know that we not only need to create digital tools, but they need to be easy to use and operate. And so we're going to spend some of our funds on designing and creating tools that the church can use digitally. And finally, I want you to notice the person contained inside that mark. That reflects our relational posture. God has wired me to be a relational person, and I want to relate to you. I want Lifeway to feel like it's a place where we understand you. Part of our new brand is that we want to be by your side in ministry. We care about churches, we care about pastors, we care about church leaders, and we want to build personal relationships with you. And number 4, our last strategic decision to speak of today is we're baking a kingdom focus into our culture. We know that Lifeway has been described as a ministry funded by a business model. And while it's true that we do have to generate funds in order to exist, we don't get any CP dollars. We want the ministry side of what we do to be the focus. I think if you talk to any one of our employees today, they would tell you that Lifeway is a spiritual place where our team gathers to worship together, to pray together, to seek the Lord's face and His vision for the future of how we could best serve His church. We need the Lord to give us the vision for the future. We need the ideas that you and the Lord could bring to us, and we know that we need a lot of help in moving the ball, but we are moving it ahead. And so in the words of our founding president, Dr. James Frost, I leave you with this: we celebrate the goodness of Him who has brought us this far, and giving Him our trust and devotion, we set our faces to the future for larger things. President Greer, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to give this report today.
Dr. Mandrell, thank you for your leadership during what has been trying times, I know, for all of us here over the last year, but especially for you guys. Questions for Dr. Mandrell or Lifeway? 2A.
Hi, my name is Marie Roman, and I am from First Baptist Church and in Sikeston, Missouri. So I have... sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
Me too.
So basically, how do you make VBS, and how much does it cost? That's my question.
How do we make VBS, and how much does it cost? Who on our team would like to answer that question? Michael Kelly, who oversees that area, can speak more specifically to that question. Michael?
Man, what a great question to ask. It's a great question. So VBS, I'm sure everybody in the room knows what the acronym stands for, but of course it's Vacation Bible School, and Vacation Bible School is a really, really important part of what we do. Hopefully it's a really important part of what you do at your church too. That all our statistics tell us that it still remains one of the main ways, one of the most strategic ways, the important and effective ways that a church can actually reach their community. It's remarkable in a room this size about how many people actually came to know Christ because of VBS. So it makes the question even more important. If VBS is that important, then how does it happen? Well, it's actually a multi-year process. So we just announced this past week what the theme for next year's VBS is going to be. It's called Spark. Now, that wasn't because we decided that was going to be 3 weeks ago. It actually started about 2 years ago, so that we are innovating and developing and shooting videos all along that timeline so that VBS gets ready. So it's a multi-year process for us to decide what the theme is going to be. And then, of course, once you decide what the theme is going to be, you have to write the music. You have to also write the Bible studies in such a way that they align with the theme, but also clearly present the gospel. And as far as the cost goes, you asked how much it costs. Well, that depends on a lot of different things. It depends on how extensive you want your VBS to be, whether you want to have something for just 5 kids, which is sort of a neighborhood VBS that we have an option for, or whether you want to have something for the entire community. So there's a lot of different answers to that question. I would say the best way to find that answer is to go to lifeway.com and just search for VBS, and you'll be able to find the answers to all of those things.
And I might add that you, the questioner, has presidential privilege to cut any line from this point on in the convention to ask a question. Okay? Question on 8A.
I really don't have a question, just a statement, because we have heard many of the cries of the people. I'm Jay McCollum. I'm a duly elected messenger from First Baptist Church in Gallup, New Mexico. I'm just like you are. I've sat in the same chairs. I've got hiney fatigue. I've listened to people make statements, some true, some may have not proper information. I represent 86 people elected by the Southern Baptist Convention, recommended from state conventions of which you are representing and your church. I am a member of the EC, the Executive Committee of the Southern Baptist Convention. We only have one member from the state that I represent, New Mexico, and I can tell you that I have been around 85 of the finest Christian gentlemen and ladies in Southern Baptist life. We do not lie, and we do not cover anything up. We represent you.
May I ask the messenger if he would get to his question for Dr. Mandrell?
Well, Dr. Mandrell, I want to thank you for the hard decisions that you've had to make. We've heard what you have said to us in committees. I want to thank you for what you have done. And Southern Baptist, that's just a statement I want to make. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me a few minutes.
Question on 6A.
Mr. President, my name is James Watson. I'm a delegate messenger from Greenlee Memorial Baptist Church in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, where I serve as pastor. I too want to commend Lifeway, but I also want to express a concern. I am very concerned that Lifeway took actions that were in violation of their mission statement and then had the audacity to have the executive committee ask us to retroactively approve those moves. Now, I understand the rationale behind those moves. However, I have spent a lot of time in my life training horses to pull wagons, and never have I seen anyone who was able to teach a horse to push a cart. And you have gotten the cart before the horse.
Can I ask the messenger if he could come to the question?
The question is, don't you feel that you owe this body, the sole member of your organization, an apology for violating the terms of your mission statement and not bringing these things to this body before taking action, rather than asking us to retroactively approve what you've already done?
My brother, I want to thank you for your comments. I do understand your position. I always want to be respectful of the process. I asked for grace in the midst of the process. As a new president of Lifeway, I was in a position where it was Ridgecrest or it was Lifeway. I have a board of trustees that you've elected that I am accountable to. I went to those trustees and I said, here are the facts, here are the figures, here's where we're at. What should we do? We prayed. We met with the Board of Trustees, and we felt like we could not delay, given the significance of the global pandemic, a future that we were looking at that was perhaps the greatest challenge Lifeway would ever face, in the closing of so many churches for a prolonged period of time. So we took action that we felt like in that moment we needed to take, and then the trustees supported it, and we moved forward. And that was the rationale behind the decision by which we made it.
Thank you, Dr. Mandrell. And Again, I just know on behalf of Southern Baptist people, we express our appreciation, as I know this was especially challenging for the nature of the work that you do. So once again, would you thank Lifeway and their team? And that concludes their